you're having girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but a podcast ain't one. Hit me. Jay-Z, greatest rapper of all time, with this week's opening reference.
Calling him the GOAT. All right.
It wasn't me. I think it was like...
you sound like a dad.
It was a couple magazines that said recently, in 2023.
Doesn't reflect your own personal opinion.
No, I don't.
No. He had trademark after it. If you looked at the notes,
Jamin Z.
Oh, okay.
You sounded so much like a dad reciting lyrics to a kid, like you just discovered them listening to something, and you come in and you say, "I've got 99 problems, but a podcast ain't one." Son, what are you listening to?
What does that mean?
Are you listening to the hip hop again?
You even make Jay-Z sound lame. Get out of here. Get out of my room.
I did succeed in making Jay-Z sound lame. Well, here we are. It's the end of 2023 and the inaugural year of Rabbit Fighters. Everybody give ourselves a hand. May we live for 1,000 years. So looking back on the year of our Lord 2023, you guys get to see any good shows?
Yeah, definitely.
No.
Yeah.
Greg, what'd you see this year?
Well, we traveled to Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is a 2.5-hour drive. Sometimes I do this. Sometimes I'll do like a tourism show where there's a band that I like that's playing somewhere, and I'll be like, an excuse to go there. And I was supposed to see Run the Jewels as a tourism show with you guys, but stuff came up and I couldn't do it. But yeah, I saw this band.
I forgive you.
Yeah, thanks.
I left early anyway.
Apology accepted, Captain Nita.
You left early anyways.
You left in song 5. That was the show. The first third of it was great. Yeah, everyone tells me the rest was excellent. No, I saw this band, The Lone Bellow, which is a band I've followed for a while, which my son actually helped me discover, and I've been following them since then. So that's probably 2015, and I've seen them live maybe 4 or 5, probably 5 times, and I'm going to see them again in a few days. They're playing in the Nashville area. Yeah.
Brian, what'd you see this year?
Absolutely nothing.
Say it again.
It's actually a post-punk band called Absolutely Nothing. No, I think it's sad. It's just sad that, at one point in time, music was kind of my life, and now
you moved to Wisconsin,
and I don't know.
Fucking wheels fall off.
There's shows in Wisconsin.
Of course there are.
In Milwaukee, they have shows there. All there is to do is sit around and drink and stay inside while the weather kills you.
It's true. I just haven't gotten around to it. I don't know. I've sort of gotten out of touch with what the kids listen to these days and stuff like that. So that's why I was dreading this particular episode. Although kind of had a bit of a softball in that the album doesn't have to be from this year, which helps. Yeah. Otherwise, I'd be screwed.
Yeah, it's a two-sided conversation here. Well, in your defense, I mean, two of my choices aren't from this year, but
I'm coming back though. I think one positive aspect of doing this podcast with you guys has sort of brought me back into the realm of film and music. I've always been a music fan, but for a very large portion of my life, it was very, very, very important to me, and it just has not been so the past couple of years. So it's kind of it's been fun to sort of explore 2023 music and all the basic stuff outside of the mainstream stuff that does come on. I kind of had to dig in a bit for this particular episode to be like, shit, what came out this year? What can I explore that I haven't listened to?
Yeah.
Exactly. I was like,
totally.
I'm going to go through these best of lists and see.
Yep.
Well, what's funny is that a lot of them, I was interested to see. I mean, how many more mainstream artists have made a lot of these lists now? I guess maybe it goes the other way, where how many artists have become mainstream that would normally not have reached audiences. I think that's kind of fascinating. For example, we'll use the old stalwart like Pitchfork, right?
Yeah.
Rewind that 8 years ago.
That's the old stalwart.
Well, I'm trying to say, from my heyday of what's the best new music out there? Like they wouldn't fucking have Taylor Swift on their lists of best stuff, they've sort of, or I guess that's not a great example, like Olivia Rodrigo, which is a pop star, is very pop. They're pretty high up on their year-end list, and I'm like, they would not have considered putting that album like that on their best of list. Like,
no, in 2005,
it's like never. It's not niche enough or whatever. Now I feel like they've kind of expanded, so it's kind of interesting.
All right. Well, for the audiences at home, what we're doing, hoping to start a new tradition here on Rabbit Fighters at the end of the year. The three of us are putting our heads together and bringing to the table some new stuff, some new music to us. Not necessarily came out this year, just stuff we discovered and wanted to share with each other and talk about that might be of interest. And so we're going to give it a go and see how it goes. Since obviously we can't afford to play any of these songs on our little podcast, if you want to check out, we have a companion playlist. There's a link to it at the bottom of the podcast, most likely. I assume so. I assume we'll put it there in post.
We'll say it's there. Yeah.
Yeah. In which case, you can click on it and I'll take you over, and you can listen to a few tracks from what we're talking about here today. With that, welcome to Rabbit Fighters. I'm Joshua.
I am still Brian.
I'm Greg.
That's probably the longest intro that we've ever done.
Yeah, maybe.
That's like a Coen Brothers intro right there.
Yeah. Or it's where you do a whole section of the movie and then 15 you do the minutes and then you do the rest of the movie. Totally.
All right. So
I have a feeling this is going to be a long one, just in general.
There's so much music.
Buckle up. Yeah. So each of us chose 3 artists, and we're going to talk about one track per artist. So nine total. So buckle up. Let's get into it. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Lay it on us.
Let's do a less controversial one, because I already know some of your opinions.
Champing at the bit here.
Yeah, champing at the bit. Good use. So I'm going to go with Hop Along, which is a band from Philadelphia, and I found this song by looking up. They were like a Consequence of Sound is like a music, I don't know, zine, whatever the heck you call it, where it's all online, but it's music and movies and stuff like that, and mostly music. And I subscribe to that newsletter, and they had this thing about the 10 best breakup albums of all time or something, and I was like, wow. Breakup albums are usually pretty solid, They always come from this emotional place. If you got half a fucking head about you can write some pretty trenchant songs about your breakup. So I looked in that, and a bunch of them I had heard of, I'd heard already, and they were well worn. And this one, Hop Along, came up. But yeah, I was like, I'm gonna check this out. And the first chords of the first song, I was like, yep, there's something here. Like I'm gonna listen to this. And I think the second or third song is the song Tibetan Pop Stars, which, god damn it, I was like, wow, this is fucking great. It just nailed me, and I've listened to it again and again. And it's one of these songs, I have this kind of affliction where I know everyone gets songs stuck in their head, but like, I'll get them stuck in there for like weeks and like months, and it'll like a disease, like it'll go away, I'll clear it out, and then it'll come back, I'll hear it again, and I'll be like, damn it, and it'll, months later it'll come back, and I'll be like, shit, it's there again. It's still in my head right now because we're doing this retrospective. The song just stays with me. It's just this. I love the raw guitar sound that they have, the emotional force behind the voice of the singer. The lyrics are really fucking cool. Like they don't ever lay bare what the person's talking about. I'm looking at the lyrics.
I really like I like her voice a lot.
Yeah.
And I just looked it up a second ago because the name jumped out at me. But while I was listening to this, I actually listened to it while I was baking holiday cookies on Friday night.
Right.
How wholesome.
I was like standing in the kitchen for several hours listening to the albums that you guys had recommended, and this one came on, and I think I probably listened to this album upwards of like 3 times.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. Obviously a talented songwriter, really like sort of angsty voice and vibe. And I was going to say it reminded me a lot of like Bright Eyes, who I'm not a huge fan of Bright Eyes, but I just looked up the same record label, Saddle Creek, as Bright Eyes out of Omaha. So I guess there's that connection there, that maybe that's why she got signed to that particular
I didn't know that. Yeah, I think I don't like all of his stuff either, but he's a hell of a songwriter. Like,
oh, totally. But
he can write the hell out of lyrics. I don't always like his voice. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thought this was a great recommendation. I'll definitely put this in the rotation. Beyond this, Brian.
I think conversely, when you said when the first song goes on, the chords of the guitar, you're like, "Oh, I'm in, I'm listening." I went, "Nope." and I was
just like Grandpa Simpson walking.
I was like, "Fucking Saddle Creek," you know. I'm sure the lyrics are fantastic. It was just the time and place of the angsty acoustic kind of thing. I was just like, you know, like granted this album's older, right? So, but it's funny that you said, it was like, I had a feeling, I was like, I bet this is like, it felt like Saddle Creek to me. And I was like,
did you listen to the whole album though? Did you listen to the whole thing?
I did. I was kind of working through like just doing like, I wasn't baking cookies, but I was, you know, doing something else, and I just put it on, and I was just kind of like, it's an album where as soon as the first song hits, I'm like, I know what this whole album's going to be about. And so
no, don't do that. Oh, come on.
I feel like I was right. It's not a bad thing. It's just sometimes you're, you know, in some of the other things we'll talk about, like the first song, just like you said, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm in. But this one was kind of like, fuck yeah, I'm out. Like, I just wasn't in a headspace for this type of stuff, you know, anymore. I know that sounds sad, but I just don't like, sometimes I just don't have the tolerance for the deep, introspective, angsty, emotional album.
All right. So Tibetan Pop Stars. Or sorry, what was the name of the band again? It's Hop Along.
Yeah.
Out of 5 points.
They deserve another listen from me.
I want to tally this all up at the end. See who wins.
Out of 5?
No, it was a competition.
No, I just think it'd be fun over time. I'll put it in Excel and make some graphs.
Ooh, out of 5?
Yeah, out of 5.
I'm giving this a 2.
I give it a 4.
That's low. I'd give it a 4 as well.
I was gonna assume 5 because.
Yep. Huh? No. It's not. The point of what I'm bringing isn't like it's the best album I've ever heard. It's just like I heard it. It's new to me in this year, and like it's definitely worth exploring.
Totally.
And it's worth recommending. It doesn't necessarily mean not every year has an album where I'm going to say this is an all-time classic album that I heard anyway.
And do not take my opinion as anything.
I don't care, man. Yeah, I don't care. I love it. I think she's great. I think they're really
Brian
great.
Has just turned off all of Nebraska.
It's all 38 people live there.
All right, Brian, you want to go next, man?
Sure. So my picks are weird. I don't know which one to go with here. One is they're all kind of just this like placeholders for things. So I guess I'll start with the actual album that was put out this year. So this was Hotline TNT's Cartwheel. And to be completely honest, I was grasping for looking for like rock albums. I just wanted to hear something that was catchy and whatever. So I was like plowing through like rock albums, trying to find something. And this one kind of caught my ear, and I was like, all right. And it's not because it's anything necessarily new. In a way, it's definitely like a shoegazy fuzz kind of thing. And it still had some good, like loud rock, not like loud, but like almost volume-esque loud kind of. I love a good, like just distortion, you know, big muff, like fuzz kind of album, but it has that harken back to the, you know, the 90s shoegazy My Bloody Valentine kind of feel to some of this, but I felt like it had some good hooks to it. And I was like, okay, it just kind of jumped out to me as like one of the few albums that I stumbled upon where I was like, okay, I could see myself actually getting into this as a standout. It wasn't not necessarily anything that's like groundbreaking here. It was more just like, oh, this is a good album. I can find myself recommending this to somebody to be like, yeah, you should check them out. Like, which for me is a pretty good recommendation in my own head of, of all the newer bands. I was like, yeah, that one kind of caught me. So, I'd be curious to hear what you thought about it.
I think I definitely want to listen to it a few more times. It didn't. I think I've probably listened to it twice now. The whole album and the song you recommended, and nothing really stuck to me. Like I can't recall much about it, but yeah, it just sort of I don't know. It just didn't make a huge impression on me. I definitely love fuzz and
not
shoegaze.
Enough apparently.
Not enough, but it's been a busy week and I haven't had my full attention. I feel like for a lot of these, like I have to like actually sit down,
yeah,
and
it's
like
tough.
be in the zone and like really pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And the problem, the only really times I get to listen to music these days are while I'm working. So and while I'm working, I'm necessarily distracted. So I don't think I've given this a fair shake. The parts I do remember about it, I do remember. I liked it. It was some good Midwestern rock and roll. So I don't know. I'll give it a 3 with an asterisk that I'll maybe increase it or decrease it depending on the next listen.
Okay. And I think that is true. I think we're going to go through all these, and it's everybody. If you pushed an album or you picked one, I feel like you've sat with it for much longer than the people who were then being like, "Hey, I got 5 days to like." You could have been listening to this thing for a year, and it's like you find little things like Greg was kind of picking off lyrics and that have sort of settled in on his consciousness. It's like it's hard just to throw somebody into it for 5 days and be like, "Hey, check out this thing." But I think just at a cursory listen, it's kind of fun to pick out. So
when during the year did you first hear this?
I think maybe like a month ago. I think.
Okay.
God, I hate using Pitchfork, but I think they were pumping this pretty hard as like a rock album this year. But
it made a lot of best of lists. Yeah.
And then I don't know if it made it that far on their list, but I remember them being like kind of pumping it, but then I don't think it was like super high up on their lists. And I remember they gave it a 8.4. So
that's good. Yeah.
But not that they're the end all be all, but I saw it on a handful of lists too. So Greg, what did you think?
Well, first of all, the album cover is a great tattoo, right? I was saying to my son, he was sitting next to me and I was
Anderson, maybe.
That would be a great tattoo. And he was like, no, not that great. I'm like, yeah, no, it would be a great, and he was like, on your shoulder. I'm like, of course, you got to have that on your shoulder. He's like, oh, this just looks like barbed wire. I'm like, no, it's
bootleg
cool.
Charlie Brown t-shirt.
It is. Isn't it?
No, it's a neat logo. It's very artistic.
Does it say something?
And then no, it just brambles. It looks like barbed
it
wire.
Kind of resembles those like metal band
like,
names where it's just you can never read what it actually says. But
it looks like two infinity symbols joined together out of barbed wire or something, but a little less.
Yeah, it's not symmetrical, so it's
like neat than that. Yeah, but yeah, I thought this band was good. This was like, again, I felt the same as Joshua, where none of the songs really jumped out at me as being like, yep, this is the track that's gonna, hook me. But I do like shoegaze stuff from the 90s, and I was like listening to it and I'm like, man, it reminds me of a specific band, and it's not My Bloody Valentine, and it's not, some of the other ones, and I was like, who the fuck is it? Because I had a million albums in the 90s, and I was like, Swerve Driver. It was that's who I figured out. I was like, it reminds me of Swerve Driver. I had this Swerve Driver album called Mescal Head, and I was like, yeah, that's it. Yeah, they sound like Swerve Driver. Also, like Slow Dive. I wrote Slow Dive in cursive, and to a lesser extent, Ride. The overall feel, the album it sounds like Swerve Driver to me, which I do have a little soft spot for. So yeah, I'd give this a 3 out of 5. I liked it. It was good. It didn't bowl me over, but I was like, yeah, this is totally worthy.
Speaking of Slow Dive, they had a great album this year. Everything is Alive. Yeah, fantastic album.
And I'd say to be fair, I'd give this a 3 as well. I'm not saying it's a,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think it's a perfectly good album. You know, it's not like, it's not clearly not the new Andre 3000, you know, flute album. I do want to check that out. I want to check it out.
I can't take flute. I don't like the flute. I don't know if I want to hear Andre 3000.
I was in a car with friends, man. And we were driving to Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, and they put this one on.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very like Brian Eno-esque, very like ambient. It was pleasant, and all the songs are like batshit crazy names for songs. Like the time I was tripping acid in Hawaii and all of the coconuts came to life, or something like that. Like that's a
where he's like, I swear, I wanted to make a rap album. I swear I did. It was the name of the first song, something like that.
All right. Well, next year one of us needs to discover Andre 3000's latest album, and then we'll talk about it next year this time. All right, I'm gonna keep it on brand with the shoegaze. I'm gonna say. So an album I discovered this year was Pale Saints, Comforts of Madness, who are an old shoegaze band out of England, late 80s, early 90s. They came out with this album, Comforts of Madness, in 1990, and I was actually on a huge shoegaze kick, like about midway through the year, and just sort of like diving like headlong into a bunch of old Ride, like really spending a lot of time with My Bloody Valentine, with albums like I hadn't like paid enough attention to, and I put on just like Spotify's like shoegaze classics, and the song Sight of You by Pale Saints came up, and it was just like one of those like attention is fully on this song right now. Like the lyrics are incredibly simple, just like my heart is sad, I am not glad. I hope he dies. Like
it's a Scott Pilgrim line.
Like there's nothing like there's nothing like really too deep about the lyrics, but then but the whole melody that goes throughout the song, it's got the nice like tinny sort of jangly guitar going through it, and then in the middle of the song there's this just raging guitar solo that just like gave me goosebumps. I was like, oh, this is great. So I just started listening to this album, and I've probably listened to it double digits by now. And I just like super enjoyed it and was like, how did I not know about this shoegaze band? Because they're right up there. They were active, heavily active during all those prime shoegaze years when it was all coming up. I want to say like the lead singer of Lush joined them temporarily as their guitar player for a while. So like they were right there in the thick of it.
I feel like this pick, you know, this like early 90s kind of shoegaze obviously is like the type of band that paved the way for the pick that I just gave, which was, you know,
probably
in the sense where these are,
right.
like My Bloody Valentine or, you know, Pale Saints, things like these type bands, and that genre, like this kind of came about in the early 90s, but all these bands that subsequently have kind of pulled a lot from that is, I remember thinking that listening to this album and listening to your pick, and I was being like, you know, the pick I made doesn't exist without this band, without these early 90s kind of bands, you know, the shoegaze kind of genre.
Oh, and I remember what sucked me in too was the lead singer's voice. Oh, yeah. He sounds or rather the lead singer of Surfer Blood sounds exactly like the lead singer of Pale Saints. And I thought for sure when it came on, I was like, oh shit, Surfer Blood's got some new music. I didn't know that. I thought they broke up, and then I looked up. I was like, Pale Saints, 1990. So that's I was like the thing that kind of drew me in there. But anyway, sorry, off topic.
I like this album too. I like Pale Saints. I didn't really know this album before either. I knew of them, but I had never like, you know, dove into the Pale Saints catalog or anything. And it's not something that I would like choose, you know, like if someone is playing it, I'll be like, this is pleasant, you know, this is a good band. It's one of those that like, if I was younger and I bought this and I was like 18 and in the phase where I listened to albums like 10, 11, 12 times in a row to see if they would stick with me, I would probably find all these layers in it and be like, oh, this is a more amazing album than I knew when I got it. Yeah. I'm more restless now. I'll listen to stuff and then move on. I'm always trying to find new stuff. But yeah, outwardly just listening to it a couple times, I was like, yeah, this is a good album. And it probably has more stuff that I haven't discovered inside of it. So yeah, I'd give it for listening, I'd give it a 3 out of 5 for probably like artistry and like what they're doing in it. 4 out of 5, I'd say.
So what is that, a 3.5?
Yeah, I'll give it a 3.5. round it to 3.5. Just because I know they're good at what they do.
You've got a spreadsheet going, don't you?
I absolutely have a spreadsheet right in front of me.
I know.
How many loonies do you get for a point?
I don't know. All right, Brian, Pale Sides.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of the sentiments that Greg said, especially the part where I think it's an album that I think I would like if I spent more time with it. It's kind of you need to kind of let that wash over you a little bit more. It's just I don't think a week is enough time to, it's enough time for me to say, yeah, like I like it, but also not enough time for me to like get really into it in a way. So I think like I hate to give it a middle of the road score, but it's one of those things where I feel like it would need to sit with me for a bit longer to kind of elevate its rotation and its status in me. So I'd probably give it a 3 just because nothing about it was like sucking me in completely. But again, to the point where it strikes me as an album where if I heard it a few times and it kind of just got in my head, I probably would give it a little bit better score just because of the fact that like as a genre I dig. So I think I could show it some more love upon further listens.
All right, back to Greg.
Yeah, so I think I'll do Czarface next because this album I just love all the way through. Like there's no considerations of like, well, some of the tracks are weak. I just fucking love this album, and I never knew of Czarface before. And it turns out this guy was the Inspector Deck from the Wu-Tang Clan, and the producers that work with him, the MC and the DJ. They are also from the Boston area, and they found, and I had no idea, like they found 7 LES. They found Inspector Deck. They met him in like 1998 and did some stuff with him above the cloud. Oh no, what is it? Speaking Real Words. They had it says earned major college radio burn in 1999. No fucking idea. And it's funny because they're 2 white kids from Boston, and they were kids when that in 1998 they were like fucking kids. Hey, we're gonna do some rapping up here. And to his credit, Inspector Deck was like, they were like, how'd you find these fucking kids? And he's like, because I looked. He's like, I wanted to go outside the Wu-Tang sphere and find some outside like fresh sounds, and like I found these 2 weirdos from Boston, and they hit it off and did the song. And so then they came back later, I think maybe 2015, they started doing Czarface stuff when they'd all kind of worked with other people and matured and stuff like that. And I think it was worth the wait. Sometimes when you get a couple of performers that like Run the Jewels, you get these 2 guys that were doing their own thing, and you smash them together and kind of magic comes out of it. And in this case, I never would have expected Inspector Deck and 2 white kids from Boston to come up with something this fucking awesome. But I just think it's great. Yeah. So
this was right in my Q zone. It was right there.
Yeah, right. My style is the one I was talking about. Yeah, I love the lyrics too. The lyrics are really clever and.
I mean, I do like a lot of hip hop, a lot of rap, but I find the artists that I connect with the most are really like nerdy and sci-fi heavy and comic book heavy. So like I was aware of Czarface with like the crossover album with MF Doom, Czarface meets Metal Face album from a few years ago before MF Doom died, which is just a great album. But I never really like came back to Czarface. But other bands, it reminds me a lot of like Deltron 3030, Dr. Octagon. Anytime there's like a rapper that's like throwing out crazy like science lyrics, like I tend to listen to it a little bit more. But this whole album is really, really enjoyable. There's one song on there that's was a Marvel this or Marvel that road trip where he's just naming superheroes. alphabetically for his kid while they're in the car. That I listened to that one like 3 times in a row. That was just it was such a delightful song.
That's so good.
Yeah, so I love this.
Yeah,
I
love
put
this
in the
shit.
heavy
Yeah,
rotation.
so
I give it like a
good,
4.5.
yeah, mine's a 5. I'm giving it 5, man. That's
Oh,
wall to wall enjoyment for me. So I fucking love it. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, this one, oh, man, this might be in the running for the best picks of from you guys. Just because this one is, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge MF Doom fan and Wu-Tang
Yeah.
for that matter. So, like, I think I've slowly kind of gravitated more away from, now that I think about it, I mean, from like indie music and stuff to, I've kind of gotten further into the hip hop realm the past couple of years. So, I feel like, I think this one is fantastic. Yeah. Same as Joshua. Like I was a fan of the, Czarface meets Metal Face with MF Doom. Yeah. I mean, this is just solid wall to wall all the way through. I love Inspect the Deck and all that. So I think these are such fun albums, like to go just from the wordplay to everything that's on it is great. I love it's maybe that's what draws me with like MF Doom. The thematic components to these albums are funny to me, like the whole like heroes and villains and cartoony, comic heroes and stuff like that is kind of a fun thing. And I know that was a big MF Doom thing with
a couple weeks ago we were talking shit about Fantastic Four, but MF Doom might be the argument for it.
Yeah, I love rap and hip hop albums where they go nonstop in the lyrics too. Where it's like high energy, lots of wordplay, lots of like staccato, bop, 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 like sick lines, like one after another, and that's what this is all the way. So
there was one line, I was crossing the street and I just started cracking up. It was you don't want a pissing contest, I'm fully hydrated. I was like in the middle of a crosswalk and just like busted out laughing. It was such a good line.
Yeah.
I think I messaged you guys immediately. I'm like, that's awesome.
I know there's so many like that too. I can't even.
What's the one I sent you guys where he says was like, call me Ishmael because I'm gonna right the ship.
Yeah.
He's about to right the ship. And I was like,
very smart.
Great.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, what did you give it, Brian?
This one's a 4.5.
4.5 for Brian.
Maybe 5.
Don't be afraid of fractions. Don't be.
God, 4.75, man. I know.
If you're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, like I probably listen to this one the most. I could play this all the time, like in terms of just I play albums like this as the background I'm working or doing.
I mean, that's the only reason I don't listen to more rap is because I have small kids and I can't just play it all the time. They'll have filthy mouths.
Yeah. I heard it from Daddy's
Do not put
music.
on Sexy Red. Do not put on Sexy Red. I tried to give that album a listen today. I was like, whoa, all right. Rated X.
All right, Brian, what do you got next?
All right.
Oh, should we stick with the hip hop theme?
If you want.
So
whatever you want, man. It's your thing.
This one's not going to be any sort of surprise. This is more of a Brian weird oddity. So my other pick was, this is the album I took off of my Spotify, wherever your listening streaming platform of choices, wrap up type thing. So the number one album I played this year was Nas's Illmatic. I've always kind of done this. I find one album and I kind of lock into it, and it's typically like I did the same thing with the entire Tribe Called Quest discography. I was really Wu-Tang's 36 Chambers. And then I think this one came from, everyone knows about this album. It's probably one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time. So I stumbled upon the documentary Time is Illmatic, which is, the kind of the documentary of Nas and the creating of this album and his kind of beginnings and to that, starting out and kind of how this album's affected everybody. So I was kind of stumbled upon that. And I was like, I've never really like dug into this album much, even though I know it's kind of like on the Mount Rushmore of hip hop albums in a way, So I just kept playing it over and over, and it's such a great album. It's one of those albums where the early 90s New York, rap scene has such a feeling to it. Like it's one of those albums that you can listen to it and it feels like it's inner streets, New York. Like the rap is totally different than it is to today. Like the storytelling and what's actually happening. It's more about what's happening in the day-to-day lives of this individual and what's happening on the streets of New York and in rap culture. And it's just a crazy talented, voice that was so, kind of new in this album, kind of when it dropped out the samples and like his perspective and all his flow. And once in a while I find albums that evoke like an emotional response to myself. Another one album came to, it was like totally different genre, but like jazz, like Miles Davis Kind of Blue or something. Like when I play that album, I have a feeling about it. Like it just kind of evokes, like same thing with this one, which is you kind of puts you into a time and a place and you kind of feel it that way. And so I sort of stumble upon one of these every year where I to the point where I kept playing it. Jen, we were in the car and it was like, I kept put on, just comes out automatically. Jen's like, you really listen to a lot of Nas lately. I was like, yeah, I don't know why. I just keep putting this album on. Like it just seems like this perfect album to put on in the car when I'm driving around and just letting it wash over me a million times.
Yeah.
Which is your partner's way of saying like, would you fucking stop this Nas album?
So it was all spurred from just kind of watching the doc. It's an interesting story and just kind of seeing kind of I think he's a incredibly talented rapper. I love that era of rap, like 90s rap to me, or hip hop, whatever, is sort of my sweet spot, whether it's like Tribe and Wu-Tang. I feel like I'll have another one next year of just like, what other classic core album did I find and got my needle stuck on for 300 plays? So
it's not like the old days either, where like, if someone wanted to like get you to stop playing an album, they could hide it. You're like, have you seen my Nas CD? Like, no, what? God, it's like, wait, that coaster over there, that looks suspiciously like a CD. No.
I've said that this is not I'd feel like this is up there with like Enter the 36 Chambers, like Wu-Tang, like things like that. Like, have you guys listened to this album much, or?
I have not.
Really? Okay.
I think, and I feel bad because of all the songs that we've recommended to each other, this is the album that I listened to the least.
I'm not offended. It's okay.
I think I made it like halfway through, and then I had to turn it off because my kids were coming into the room, and I was like, "Oh shit!" MF everything. so I felt kind of bad, and again, it's one of those things where I feel like I really need to like focus on it. Based on your recommendation here, I definitely feel like I need to give it another spin when it's just me and Nas. I liked New York State of Mind. I was actually listening to that one in particular while I was making dinner tonight. Volume a little bit lower because some the kids might walk in, but and I enjoyed
Daddy,
it.
Is our motherfucking dinner yet?
You trying to sell nice rock? What is that? Like what is it?
And to your point, like he was definitely like evoking a story. Like he was a very good storyteller. Yeah. You feel like you're listening to somebody like telling a novel to you. So I enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it a 3 just because again I want to come back to it, but I don't really know how I feel about it.
Yeah, I actually hadn't heard this one before either, and I did listen to a bunch of hip hop and rap in the 90s. I feel like it's kind of ridiculous that I didn't hear this one. I just got this thing where I would get I was way into Ice Cube.
Oh, me too. Yeah,
Ice Cube records and NWA, and like I would pick people and be like, "You're my guy. I'm gonna listen the hell out of you," and then like I just wouldn't always listen to him. Like I didn't listen to Notorious B.I.G. I listened to that the first time this year again because I heard a documentary, and I always kind of was like, he's kind of overhyped and like he can't be that good, And I heard a couple songs, the real famous ones, but then I heard this documentary about him, and I was like, this is super interesting, and this guy sounds like he's a really fucking smart guy, and listen to his stuff, and it's complicated because there's so much like bigotry in these old albums too. Like they use the F word about gay people. They,
a lot of misogyny.
Use the B word for women all the time. Yeah, and you're like, God, it's so hard to fucking judge this stuff. But you just have to chalk it up to being a person who grew up in rough circumstances, and like this is just the way people talked, and life is fucking hard, man, and people weren't always good to each other, and Lord knows the people weren't always good to the people who made this music. So, I thought it was great. I think it's a great album. I feel like a fool for not having heard it earlier. It is all the hallmarks of the classic rap.
That's funny.
album.
That's how I felt too. Or it's like, how did I not like how did I miss this? And and it's weird because then you watch someone talk about it and you're like, yeah, dude, like it's one of the greatest raps. So you're like, yeah, I don't know. I saw this one. Yeah, but to your point, like loving Ice Cube, NWA, like I've listened to all. I just never, my needle never got there. I was just kind of interested. That's why I think it's kind of funny.
As a white person, I'm always like, but I do listen to hip hop and rap. I do feel defensive. Like, why didn't I listen to this? Just because, like, I should have heard this, but I just didn't,
I don't feel that. I don't think too much music out there.
I think to be fair, I was just going to say the same thing. There was so many good rap albums, like in the early 90s and stuff like that. Man, like especially in New York, East Coast, West Coast. Like,
I think it was the golden age for me. It was the golden age of rap and hip hop. Is like even like '93 specifically. There was so many damn great albums that came out in '93. Even like the Far Side and stuff like that. All these, even the lesser known acts that are out there. Just there's so many awesome friggin' acts that came out like in the early '90s, and there was so much energy in the scene. And there was that East Coast West Coast thing where that kind of like poisoned it a little, but also drove it, people actually fucking killed each other. So it was crazy, but it also, they were in competition with each other to see who could like blow the other side out of the water. And like each person or a group that came out with something was like, we got to top this guy's last
Americans are so territorial.
But it does lead to greatness sometimes, where you're just trying, you're like, I gotta have, it's gotta be so good, to make it.
All right, Greg, so what did you give Nas?
Yeah, I'll give it a 5. Yeah, it's a classic album, for sure.
5, Joshua, you're
I'm a fool for not hearing
5? Was it 5 for you, Brian?
Of course.
Of course. Mr. Just heard it this year.
This isn't Pale Saints. I mean, fuck.
Yeah, I will say in advance, none of the things that you guys sent me are albums I thought were bad. Like none of them were ones I was like, what the fuck is this?
I don't know if I can say the same for one of the ones that you were going to say, but we're going to talk about that here in a minute.
I know. Got to mix it up.
Hello, Rabbit Fighter listeners. We've come to the point in this podcast where those who've listened to this episode in its entirety may need to stand up, stretch their legs, or possibly get a snack. In fairness to those listeners, we will now take a few seconds before we begin side 2.